Hi guys, in today's lesson we're going to be looking at how to evaluate your design ideas. This level of analysis is mainly aimed at your developed design ideas, so we're looking at section D here, so where you've taken your initial ideas, you've hopefully modelled them in some card or some resistant materials, and now you're developing them to show a further level of detail. As you can see here, what I've done is I've written some key points that you should try and cover in your analysis, and I've colour coded that on the right hand side, and this example would be about a level 9. If you were to analyse each model to this level of detail, it's hard to say as your work's being marked by a teacher, but this is a very thorough level of analysis that should enable you to reach the top mark level. Like that. Okay, so the first point, we want to explain and justify why you have or haven't chosen the idea. So that's a simple thing where you say whether you plan to develop the idea or not based on the factors that you've discussed on the page in general. You can use labels to annotate key features. Now, if you don't know the answer to everything, all you need to do is consider what you need to research further. So if you're saying you can use a sheet material or you can use hinges, but you don't know specifically what they are, that's a great opportunity to get in some ongoing research. So simply say, I need to use a sustainable sheet material that's 12 millimeters thick. I will do some further research to discover what the best material is for this, and that will help you to get more marks by showing that you're doing ongoing research throughout the project. Okay, then we want to think about construction details. So at this stage you want to try and start to think about how you're going to put the piece of work together. Here I've simply shown in terms of construction details that the box at this stage is going to be screwed together and glued together, and I've got a little cross-sectional drawing as well as a close-up little exploded drawing of one of the joints to show that that'll be fixed together. So I referred to how it's going to be constructed. I've also referred to the fact that it would be a butt joint in this instance. So you want to try and show more than one view of your design, just to give it that distinction between the initial ideas and the development. These are all just my opinions of how the work comes across, but I've been teaching for 15 years and I always find that these types of work get a higher mark. So here I've shown the box opening. I've also shown the close-up views that I was talking about earlier, just to try and give that higher level of detail to the design. Point 5, include and justify the material choices. This will have to be done specifically when you come to your manufacturing specification. At the moment, if you can try and indicate some of the materials chosen and justify the reason. So for example, you could say you're going to use birch plywood because it has got a higher level of tolerance being a manufactured board than say a sheet of pine that's been jointed together and could have natural warp in it. Justification is a really key thing for getting above a level 5 or 6. Every point needs to be justified. Explain why you've made this decision and why it ties in with your project. Point 6, we're looking at what else you need to find out in order to develop this product. So I mentioned earlier about ongoing research. As you develop an idea, it will get the ball rolling of lots of different ideas and things you need to do to develop that product. So for example, there where I've used the hole cutter, do you have the facility to use the hole cutter? Will you need to laser cut the holes instead? Do you have a CAM machine that could cut those holes out, like a CNC router? So it's to consider what questions have been raised by this design idea and what will you have to research further, and just highlight that nice and clearly. The final 2 points are to do with analysing whether your product is suitable for the specification and suitable for the client. You were given a brief at the start of the project to meet, you've interviewed a client, and you've written some form of initial specification. You need to explain which points meet the specification and the client's needs, which ones don't currently, and what you're going to do about it if they need to be improved. So for example, you may say, this idea has diverged slightly from the client's requirements, however I think the changes are an improvement, therefore I'm going to consult with my client and see what they think. Okay, coming up now is a little time lapse of the process of me doing a development illustration with some of these annotations by hand. Hopefully that's been useful, and you can pause this video to have a look at the example. Just to point out that the color coding that's done on here is just to make it clearer for you to see where I've used the different points. That obviously wouldn't be necessary on your work, and we'd be looking for, in development in my class, about 4 ideas done to this level for the section D, initial design ideas development. which would then tie into more complicated models later on in the project. Cheers.
So as with any sketch here, I'm going to start out in light pencil, working out the basic shape. Really, you want to be doing this in isometric, but it's still just a sketch, so I'm just using a rough isometric as the idea. You then work over the top in a fine black pen to get your details nice and clear. And notice that I've added those exploded sections I talked about. Make sure that the image has got an indication of the thickness of material as its development sketch, and then you can add your annotations as we just went through on the earlier slide.